please to committee members keep their cameras on and keep your microphone off unless you're speaking to an item, but also to ask you if you wouldn't mind, if you wish to ask a question or speak during any of the meeting proceedings, could you please use the raise your hand flag so I can see that. I will keep an eye on it, but sometimes it's not the easiest. So if you can keep that going, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Welcome to any members of the public who are watching us today on Council's YouTube channel. And I'll, with that, pass to Councillor Briggs, if you would be so kind to take us through the karakia, which I believe will be shared on screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Everyone, please feel free to join in. Me noi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. Appreciate that. So I will also just confirm we have no apologies for the meeting today. I'm not aware of any public comment that has been required. Just double check that that remains correct with Democracy Services, please.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Also, just as always, a check please with committee members if there's any conflict of interest declarations that need to be updated or anything with respect to the items that we have on our agenda today, please. Take that as no. Thank you very much. And sorry, Councillor Morgan, you're waving at me.
Sorry,
thank you.
I am waving and I put my hand up. But yeah, no, I'm actually being reimbursed, and in the sensitive expenditure paper, I just thought I'd put that there. I'm not sure if it's a conflict of interest or not, but just to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you, Councillor Morgan. Always good for the interests of transparency, if in doubt, declare something. So thank you for that. Also, I have advised Democracy Services of some minor changes of subcommittee membership on the Quotable Value Board. It's as a result of changing its directors. I now chair the People and Culture Committee, so no change to my overall responsibilities. It's just a subcommittee chair that I've taken on, and I will be moving off the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee with effect from the last meeting I'll attend is tomorrow. Thank you. Moving on. Item 5 on the agenda, which is the Hutt City Council Group Annual Report for 2023-2024, an update on the external audit processes, which is on page 10 of our agenda pack for today. Jenny, if I could welcome you, please, and ask you to speak to the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so this report's got two key components. There's an update on the Group Annual Report, and then it talks to the external audit for the LTP process. In terms of the Group Annual Report, a quick little update and reflections as to where we've got to currently. So overall, tracking really well. Tomorrow, the corporate leadership team have got the Group Annual Report on the agenda, and they'll be going through it as part of our internal review processes. And we're working towards the presentation of the Group Annual Report to the subcommittee in a workshop we've got scheduled for the 9th of September. So overall, at a high level, all the content's coming together and tracking well. Just a few detailed aspects. In terms of Urban Plus Annual Report, that audit piece of work has been completed, and we are awaiting final audit clearance from the auditors. So overall, we're really pleased with that audit. Seaview Marina, that audit's also just recently been completed, and we're also waiting for final audit clearance. And then the Hutt City Council interim audit was completed, and we've got the final audit starting in about mid-September, so still a bit of time before that one starts. I just want to emphasise and talk to the asset revaluation of Three Waters assets. So there is some information in the paper, just a bit more information and update on that one. It has been really complex. We received the first draft report for the asset revaluation in June, and that was part of when we're finalising our LTP audit, and it impacted on our LTP. Since then, we've been doing further work with our valuers and with Wellington Water. We've agreed an extra piece of work that's happening to gain some additional assurance around specific asset classes, particularly the wastewater treatment plant and pump stations. And we've also got Wellington Water doing another piece of work around the unit rate. So, because of there's big numbers involved, we want to make sure that we've got really good comfort around where the asset revaluation lands. We've engaged these extra pieces of work. There are some risks around the timeline. So those extra pieces of work are only finishing in about mid-September. And then after that, we'll need to go through the external audit process. So it is going to be challenging completing that all before we adopt the annual report on the 29th of October. So I just want to highlight that risk. And then just in terms of the LTP content in the report, there'll be no surprises there that we basically work through that audit opinion and the impacts through the LTP process when, we finalise the LTP. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that update around the additional work that is required. I appreciate also that it is going to be quite tight on timing, but it's work that does need to be done. So thank you for pursuing that and also updating us. I'll just open to members of the committee and ask if there are any questions that you have on the report, please. I'm not seeing any questions, just to double check for those present in the chamber. Everybody, there were no questions. Thank you. I'll then move the recommendations, and there are a few, so please bear with me. They are that the subcommittee one receives and notes.
Apologies.
Sorry.
Councillor Morgan has her hand up. Councillor Morgan might have a question for you.
Oh, sorry, it's not come up on the little flag. Sorry, Councillor Morgan. Now it has. It's delayed. Maybe just try the wave. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Yeah, I did. Hey, look, just a really quick one. On page 25 of Appendix 1, just talking about the access rights and looking at a plan and just wondering around that process. And it says, we'll follow up this matter during the final audit 23-24. Just wondering, is that, when is that exactly? Just around the, with the... Yeah. Do you see with the IT review of IT user access rights, I think? Am I on the right one? Oh, I might be on the wrong one. I'm on the wrong one. Don't worry. Forget what I just said. I'm on the next spot. Apologies.
Okay. Just hold your question for that one then, Councillor Morgan. Thank you. Okay, we'll come back to the recommendations. They are that the subcommittee one receives and notes the update on the preparation of the group annual report for 2023 and 2024. 2, notes that the interim audit was completed successfully and that the interim management report issued by Audit New Zealand is included in the report as Appendix 1. 3, notes that the final audited group annual report 2023-2024 is expected to be available for council adoption on 29/4. 4, notes that the statutory deadline for the adoption of the group annual report 2023-2024 is 31 October 2024. 5, notes to present the unaudited group annual report 2023-2024 to the Audit and Risk Subcommittee on the 24th of September 2024. And 6, notes that the risks highlighted in relation to the asset revaluation for the 3 waters assets, referring to paragraph 19 in the report. And 7, New Zealand final management report on the long-term plan 2024-2034, refer to section F of the report and Appendix 2 attached to the report. May I have a seconder, please? And if you could please state your name just so that it's audible on the recording, please.
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. I have a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion required on the report, please, committee members? I'll take that as no. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against say no.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, Jenny, and I know that's a very tight time frame, so good, good work. Item 6 on the agenda, the 3 water. Yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Sorry, I just want to answer the question for Councillor Morgan because it did actually relate to the audit report. So she was asking in the right place around access rights. Do you want to ask your question again, Councillor Morgan?
apologies. Yeah, I was reading two different things. It was actually on page 12, and I actually had two then. And I'm sorry if I'm mucking this up now. So if you don't want to answer that, it's absolutely fine. It was just about the review of the IT user access. That was on page 12. And I'm sure now there's a plan in process, and it sounds like there's a good plan around that. And the second one that came up was on page 25. Sorry for the confusion. Just around the complaints being counted separately, and wondering if there's a timeline for that to be implemented. Just that's being discussed. That's all. Sorry.
That's fine, Councillor Morgan. No, that's fine. So, London, if you could please answer the first question, and then perhaps Jenny or Joe may be able to answer the second question, please.
Yep, no problems. So the review of access rights, there's a couple of, what they've pulled out here is application level access rights. So there's two levels within the organisation. One is your access rights when you log onto the network, and we all have that, and we all have multi-factor authentication. We review that all the time. That's constantly reviewed. What the auditors come up and said, there's some applications that we run within the organisation where we need to do a deeper dive on those access rights and review those. We do ad hoc checks on that, and the other thing we do is when new users start or people leave, we're definitely updating. But we have agreed that we will do a formal process for an annual review to make sure we do a second review. So it's just enhancing our process. We're already very secure. I'm confident that our access rights are managed very well within our current environment, but we'll add that process in to make sure we meet requirements.
Excellent, thank you, London. And either Jenny or Joe, are you able to answer Councillor Morgan's second question, please, with respect to complaints?
Yes, I can start, and then I'll ask Jared if he wants to add in anything else extra. So in terms of customer complaints, there has been some work undertaken and improvements made in our system, and we are recording each complaint separately now. But I understand that the work isn't completed. There's still some further improvements needed. And as part of our Go Digital program, we're implementing Dynamics 365, and I understand that's going to be the full package and really resolve this completely. That's my understanding, but maybe Jared would like to add something else.
Thank you, Jenny. Jared, would you like to add?
No, Jenny's really nailed it there. I think we've definitely made some short-term improvements in terms of logging individual complaints. We ultimately have underlying technology constraints, which we're progressing through Go Digital. So the upgrade to Dynamics will allow better sort of use case and ticket management of requests and requests for service, and allow us to report on those in a much more thorough way. At the same time, we're also looking at sort of associated improvements to the telephony system as well, which through being able to more accurately, for example, code the calls coming through, linking to a customer relationship management tool, using deeper reporting through use of AI and other reporting features, we think we're going to be in a much better shape and probably the coming financial year, but short term, and then there's also the medium term improvements coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Lyndon, Jenny and Jared. And certainly both all responses are moving towards the continuous improvement path, which is good to hear. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Morgan, for the questions. So coming back to item 6 on the agenda, Three Waters, which is on page 29 of the agenda pack, I'd like to invite Bruce to speak to the report, please. Good afternoon, Bruce.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just got a couple of updates that I want to provide, otherwise I take it as read, the report. The first one is in relation to paragraph 22 in terms of the number of water leaks. So I'm happy to report that that number has come down further just as of yesterday to 231. So we're about 120 away from the target that we need to get to. And in paragraph 29, where we are talking about the financial modelling to understand the impacts of the proposal Three Waters reform program, that information in Appendix 3 went to the LTP AP Subcommittee yesterday for its information. That's all I've got to add at this stage. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Appreciate that update, and good to see, obviously, that you're not too far away from the target with respect to leaks. Well done. So, members of the committee, are there any questions that you would like to ask of Bruce, please? Councillor Morgan, is that a new hand there?
Just a new hand.
Good, thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Look, this was a really comprehensive report with everything around the Wellington Water that occurred, and I really appreciate all the huge effort that's gone into it. I just had one question in context to the implementation plan and the internal audit that's going to be going on moving forward. Can you please just answer for me, does that mean it's still carried out by external people? The internal audit is carried out by an external company. Is that correct or incorrect? Please.
So are you referring to the report that was provided to the board on the incident that happened? Okay,
Yeah.
so what's happening there is the board is preparing an implementation plan. That implementation plan is going to be reported to the next meeting of the Water Committee, and there'll be aspects of that plan that there'll be engagement between the council officers and Wellington Water officers to make sure that those things are being implemented. So we'll be keeping an eye on those recommendations that come from the implementation plan recommendations so that they are achieved, and we'll be reporting back through this committee.
Okay. Thank you. May I follow up, Chair? Is that
yes,
okay?
Please do.
I guess I was just looking because a lot of the recommendations were talking about the internal things going on. And unless you know, you don't know sometimes. So I wondered if the capability is there to ensure that that implementation plan within the Wellington Water team has enough support to ensure that those recommendations and changes occur, because what we don't want is these things to happen again, obviously. And so that's why I questioned so I read on another report, the internal audit as part of that uses other people. So it's just that assurance, I guess, to ensure that those recommendations and changes are occurring. That's all I was asking for, I guess.
I think Jo would like to respond as well, Councillor Morgan. So Jo, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Morgan, I think the other thing we've got to bear in mind here is the governance. So the Wellington Water Committee, the company, need to hold its executive to account, make sure they have the capacity and capability to do what they need to do. The obligation is for them to report through to us as shareholders via the Wellington Water Committee. So I appreciate it can get convoluted, but that's how that governance works.
And I would also add to that, thank you, Jo, that there is a lot of scrutiny on making sure that that governance is actually working appropriately. And I think you can see some of that evidence that's been publicly reported. I can also advise you that I have frequent discussions with Jo on this as well to make sure I'm satisfied that it's being appropriately covered through that governance model that she's just described to us as the Audit and Risk Subcommittee of the Council as a shareholding party. Thank you for the question, Councillor Morgan. Any further questions, members?
Councillor Stellinger?
Yes, Councillor Stellinger, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes, talking to the same report, which I thought was a very helpful one, fairly blunt, but I think that's good because it enables more prompt action, I suppose. The one matter I'm still not clear on really goes right back to the beginning and the first time this issue was reported to us, and that is precisely what is the extent of the error. In fact, the report left me a little bit more confused because we were discussing a 6% overhead that was omitted, but in here it refers to a 6% and then in other places a 10%, and there was confusion in the organisation. So I'm left not knowing whether the error was a 6% omission of overheads adding to the capital costs or a 10%. And the other matter that came up when we first were reported this was reference to the total, which covered a 3-year period. And the chair of the Wellington Water Committee, our mayor, did tell us that, in fact, the error extended across the whole 10 years, not just the first 3. Although my kind of understanding of other comments was that the nature of the error was somewhat different because the projects are more specific or more specified in the first 3 years, where they're more of the nature of provisions beyond that. So I'm hoping someone can just clarify for me what was the full extent of the error that occurred.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stellinger. I might just check, Jenny, are you able to provide the initial response to the question? And maybe Joe, you might like to add to that, please.
If you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'll
or
lead in.
Bruce, you will? That's fine. I don't mind at all. Please go ahead.
It's okay. So Wellington Water traditionally have been using a figure of 6% as its amount of overhead that it would allocate from the organisation to the capital works program. Because it had expanded quite rapidly over the last 2 years in order to deliver the level of program, that 6% wasn't sufficient to meet that overhead, and what they found was that number should have been 10%. So what we have is a difference of 4%. So that is the reality of the difference, I think, and it is applicable mainly to the first 3 years. That number for us was around 21 million. The out years, the answer to that one is that because the out years haven't really been looked at closely, they're very, they've got a lot of margin in them, let's say. And so that Wellington Water felt that that would be picked up within that margin.
Thank you, Bruce. Any additional comments, either Joe or Jenny, you'd like to make?
No, I don't think so.
No, thank you. Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Councillor Stelling, for the question. Are there any further questions before I move the recommendations?
Just if you don't
Mr. Mayor.
Not
at all.
Madam Chair. I think to make the point, even with Bruce's answer there, I think it's really important for us to be clear that even though that's the case, it's still completely unacceptable. And I know that message has been delivered from the shareholder at the shareholder level through the committee and to the board chair, and more will need to come back to understand exactly what those errors mean. So I suppose I just want to reassure Councillor Stellinger that we're not just going to park that. It is, it will come back in those through those recommendations that were formed from the independent review as well. Well, that's the expectation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no doubt that that will be the case. I suggest also that there is, as I mentioned earlier, a fair amount of interest from, shall we say, other broader stakeholder parties, which would not also include sort of the interest coming through from Audit New Zealand and on behalf of the Office of the Auditor General. So there's a fair amount of pieces there. But no, thank you all for your contributions to Councillor Stellinger's question. So move to recommendations. I will now move those. There are a number, so please bear with me. And they are that the Subcommittee 1 notes the report and recommendations of the Wellington Water Limited Board's independent review of its systems and processes following the omission of the corporate overheads and its advice on the draft long-term plan capital works program. 2, notes that the Wellington Water Limited Board is developing an implementation plan to put into effect the recommendations of the report, which were reported to the Water Committee at its meeting on the 27th of September 2024. 3, notes that this matter has been added to Council's issues register with the intention to monitor actions arising from the report's recommendations. 4, notes progress on the new regional model for delivering 3 waters and the risks associated with the process. 5, notes that the investigations into the upgrade/renewal of the main Hutt Valley wastewater pipe under State Highway 2 are progressing with 2 options shortlisted for further development and consideration. 6, notes that the abatement notice has been issued by Greater Wellington Regional Council requiring odour treatment upgrade work to be completed by 1 November 2024, along with the accompanying reports on the work and its effectiveness. 7, notes that the progress on eliminating the backlog of leaks remains on track and that officers are working with Wellington Water Limited to understand resourcing requirements over the critical summer period to achieve and maintain leaks at the target level, and that this information will be reported back to the next meeting of the subcommittee. And 8, notes that financial modelling prepared to provide an early indicative outlook on the impact of the new regional water entity being established, refer to Appendix 3 of the report. May I have a seconder, please? If you could please just state your name for the recording.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I have a mover and a seconder. Committee members, would you like to discuss the paper any further before I put the motion? No,
yes,
thank you. Yes.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Councillor Stallinger here again.
Go ahead, Councillor Stallinger.
Perhaps could have been a question, but I'll just leave it as a comment because I don't need an answer to this now. It's really a bit of a surprise, I suppose, in relation to the increase from 6 to 10%, unrelated to the error itself. I'm taking that it represents a diseconomy of scale, because obviously the more capital projects are charged 6%, the greater the recovery of overheads. But applying a 10% across a greater capital base gives a far bigger increase in overhead recovery. So I'd be interested at some point if a bit of a response from the company could come on that, or an explanation from the officers, maybe to a subsequent meeting or by email, just to explain how that what must be a very large increase of overheads is justified, given that there's more work to apportion them to.
Thank you, Councillor Stallinger. Bruce, are there any initial responses you would like to make to Councillor Stallinger's point? Firstly and secondly, are you then able to provide a more fulsome update, either by way of an email or by including that in your report to our next meeting, please?
Yes, I think I'll report back via a email. I'll talk to Wellington Water first, but yeah, thank you.
I think that would be appreciated. Thank you, Bruce, to actually make sure that you've got a not only accurate but complete response to that. So, Councillor Stallinger, please be aware that there will be a response provided via email. Thank you for that. I have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand, and all those against say no.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, Bruce. We appreciate your work. That moves us to item 7 on our agenda, which you'll find on page 94, and that is the Te Pura Horonuku update. I'd like to ask Rona, I believe, to speak to the report.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Yes, and
thank you.
Paul
Go ahead, John.
Hewitt is with us as well, the head of transport. So just a quick update. We're just updating the committee on progress of Te Pura Horonuku, because it's been a couple of meetings since we have done that. So we're now almost 40% complete with the project. Even though there's only one bay completely finished, we're partially on our way through a number of other bays as well. There's been a couple of impacts around the sewer main and the depth that we've had to go down, and also a smaller impact from the Days Bay leak from a week or so ago. So the bird protection areas are the other key part that we are leading, and just some segments of the public have voiced their displeasure around sort of the height of the fences to protect the penguins, but we are working with them on that. So we've also extended the working hours in Lauri Bay, which is the biggest bay and the one that's going to take the longest. So, and we're monitoring that really closely in terms of the traffic management, but the delays to motorists are within the 5-minute limit, if you like, throughout. So we've extended the working day by quite a reasonable amount to pick up some of the days we've lost through king tides and the odd southerly. But I will just note this week won't be a great week for working with the weather, and as we head into spring is the most risky period of time for the next couple of months with our stormy springs. So open to any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for that update, John, and also for the team and the good work. Any questions, please, committee members?
Councillor Edwards.
Councillor Edwards, please go ahead.
Thanks, John. I love the euphemism that people are very engaged with that BPA fence. But my question, yesterday during the hearing, there was comment made that people were having difficulty finding the gates in the fence. Have we got some plan to make it more obvious where those gates are?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor. So yes, no, I wasn't aware of that. So we'll work with our team on making them a little bit more obvious. They are in different stages of construction, different BPAs. So, but we will make sure that they are very clear.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Councillor Edwards, for that question. Are there any further questions? No, thank you. The recommendation is very simple on this, so I will now move that, and that is that the subcommittee receives and notes the content of this report. May I have a seconder, please?
Karen Morgan, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Is there any further discussion on the report, members? No, thank you. I'll then put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand, and against say no.
Aye.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Thank you, John. That takes us to agenda item number 8, which is on page 97 of our pack, and that is the insurance renewal. I'd like to invite Glenn to speak, and also to welcome, I believe, Annie, who is joining Glenn from Aon. So please go ahead, Glenn and Annie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pleased to provide the committee with an update on our insurance renewal program for the last 12 months. I'll provide just touch on a couple of highlights. And yes, as you mentioned, Ani Tawhaiti, who's the Executive Director at Aon that we deal with, is also here and available to answer any technical or in-depth questions, perhaps in regard to our renewal process, or in particular just the market in general and the challenges that are being faced currently. So just in regard to the update, yes, we have successfully renewed all of our insurance programs, the major one being the property and infrastructure, which was renewed in May for a 12-month period. The remaining and smaller policies were renewed in November last year, also for a 12-month period. Essentially, section or paragraph 10 of the report does deal with the challenges that are being faced by the market, and therefore that filter down to us, mostly relating to weather events. And as everybody will be fully aware of, the floods in Auckland and Cyclone Gabriel had a very marked effect on the insurance market, on the premiums, and also on the capacity for domestic and offshore insurers for our program. But in saying that, due to recent times, those weather events have not had the same impact. There has been a wee bit more competition and therefore capacity within the market. Competition coming by the way of increased appetite within various bands of the program, and new insurers coming on board. As looking forward to 2025, we don't see too much change to the current market environment. The insurers are going to be a wee bit selective with their underwriting and their pricing of weather events, which has been the major effect for the last couple of years. In saying that, yes, insurance premiums for last year did rise, although it wasn't probably as much as we expected, and we fully expect to be able to complete our insurance coverage for the next financial year.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for that update and all the work. I'd just like to, before I open for questions, just to invite Annie if there's anything that she would like to update the committee on, maybe potentially with respect to the wider market. If there's any trends or anything like that, Annie, that you'd be beneficial, welcome your input. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I don't really have anything to add. I think that Glenn has covered it off quite well. The market conditions are challenging. They have been that way for quite some time, and we will expect them to continue. One of the focuses has been to ensure that we're prepared for those challenging market conditions. I think that there's been this expectation that we might return to easier ways and times of accessing insurance, and that's just not going to be the case. So an acceptance that this new challenging environment is the norm has been a positive development for us, I think. So yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I'm happy to take questions though.
Thank you, Annie. And yes, you are my observation too from other programs of insurance renewal I'm involved in. Yes, as you say, this is the norm now going, and being prepared is the best way to be. And thank you both, Glenn and Annie, for that. Members of the committee, if I'll just open for questions. If you could please just advise whether you're addressing your question to Glenn or whether you're addressing it to Annie. I'm sure that would be appreciated, please. Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any hands, just to double check. No questions? Thank you. I will then move the recommendations, and they are that the Subcommittee 1 notes that Council has successfully renewed its property and infrastructure insurance program for policies commencing 1 May 2024 for a 12-month term. 2, notes the remaining policies renewed on 1 November 2023 for a 12-month term. 3, notes the insurance renewal challenges as outlined in paragraphs 10 and 11 of the report. And 4, notes that the insurance costs for the 2024-2025 are expected to be within budget. If I may have a seconder, please.
Councillor Stallinger.
Thank you, Councillor Stallinger. Members of the committee, is there any further discussion required on this report before I put the motion? No, thank you. I'll then put the motion. Would all in favour please say aye or raise your hand, and against say no. I'm seeing hands. Thank you. I will declare the motion carried. Thank you, Glenn. And thank you, Annie. Good work. Challenging, as we've said. Thank you for a great outcome. Moving on, thank you. Moving on, item 9 on our agenda, please, which is found on page 102 of the pack, and that is the risk management and assurance update. Good afternoon, Nishana, and thank you for your report. Just like to give you the opportunity to speak to it, please, before we take questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So this is our quarterly update to the subcommittee. It was last presented in April 24. There are still 8 risks on our risk register. We have changed one risk name, that's risk number 1, from government reforms to legislative and regulatory changes, creating higher cost and reducing subsidiaries. This risk also had components of its overall residual risk rating change, resulting in its overall residue reducing to now become medium. We have 7 risks on the register that has an overall residual risk rating of medium, and 1 is rated as low. And this is reflective of the confidence that Council has and the positive outcomes we are seeing through the treatments that are being implemented. So thank you, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Nishana. I'll open to questions, committee members. No questions? Nishana, thank you for your update and continued good work. If I look back actually at some of our previous work, and I think our report committee, and I think if you look at those, you can see the evidence of the work and the attention and the focus, which I'm sure every member of this committee appreciates. So I'd just like to acknowledge that. So I will move the recommendations. Sorry, someone just heard a noise there. Is someone wishing to speak? No, I'll keep going. That the subcommittee 1 receives notes information in the report. 2 notes that there are 8 risks brackets, no change since the last update, close brackets, on Council's strategic risk register. 3, notes the overall residual risk rating relating to legislative and regulatory changes creating higher cost of reducing subsidies. Risk, which is previously known as government reforms and as risk 1, has decreased to medium, which was previously high. 4, notes the update on other activities contained within the report. And lastly, number 5, notes the risk register as at 31 July 2024 attached as Appendix 1 to the report. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Members of the committee, there were no questions for this report. However, is there any discussion or comment any of you would like to add? I will take that as no and put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. Against, please say no.
Aye.
Aye. I'm hearing aye and seeing hand. I will declare the motion carried. And again, thank you for your good work, Nishana, and keeping this committee updated. Moving on to item 10 on our agenda, which Nishana is not running away because she's going to talk to us about this one as well. Page 116 of the pack. That is the 3-year internal audit plan for 2025 to 2027. So thank you for this report and plan also, Nishana. It is very important to give visibility. So I'd just like to give you the opportunity to speak to your report before we open for any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the internal audit really provides an independent, objective assurance and advice, and its key purpose is to add value so that we can improve and strengthen our operating control. So this plan has been set for 3 years, but we can revise it in line with the appetite and the environment at the time. So annually we could revise this. It has been developed using a risk-based approach, but it does allow for some flexibility for changes through the year. Paragraph 8 on the report actually lists all the activities that has been carried out to develop this plan, and paragraph 9 lists the engagements that will be carried out in 24-25. There are 4 engagements. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishana. And before I do take questions from members of the committee, just for awareness, it's important that you have your internal audit plan, because that's working alongside but independently to your external audit plan. So this is your own checks and controls and balances, and as Nishana says, that can be moved around depending on priorities that might be deemed to become slightly more important than others. But it is important to have that framework of what you're going to look at. It is something that your external auditors will look at too, just to make sure get a second check on their sense of controls and what the attention that's being focused. And of course, this also needs to be considered in conjunction with the risk management update and the risk register that Nishana has just presented to us. So it all fits together, if that, just to give you that sort of context. So that said, I will open to any questions that members of the committee may have, please. I'm not seeing hands or any indication anybody has any question. So therefore, I will now move to the recommendations and move that the subcommittee 1 receives and notes the report, 2 approves the prioritisation of the internal audits and review engagements, and 3 approves the 3-year internal audit plan 2025 to 2027 attached as Appendix 1 to the report. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Stellinger.
Thank you, Councillor Stellinger. I will now, as I've got to have a mover and a seconder, there were no questions. However, I'll just ask if there's any discussion or comment any member of the committee would like to make to this report before I put the motion, please. Again, I'm not hearing anything there, so I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. Against, say no. I'm seeing hands. Thank you. So I'll declare the motion carried, and thank you, Nishana, for your good work and focus.
Thank you.
That takes us, members of the committee, to page 126 of our pack, where we will find item 11 on our agenda, which is the HRIS Human Resources Information System and Payroll Project update. And I'd like to invite Megan to speak to her report, please. And I believe, yes, I can see Lyndon's joining. So thank you, Megan and Lyndon. Please go ahead.
Kia ora tātou. Just very good news in that the HRS payroll project since the last time that we met has been restarted in May of this year. And we have also hired a specialist HR payroll PM to help do this work as a key lesson learnt from the last iteration. A project brief was presented to our Go Digital program board in May, which got signed off, and we're looking to complete the initiation phase by Q2 of this year. So this includes reviewing the work done to date, really defining the objectives and scopes and the requirements, market research, procurement, and vendor evaluation, selection leading to our business case as well. I've noted a couple of risks there around availability of suppliers, our budgetary constraints, process improvement change, and of course holidays at compliance. We have recently held an initial risk workshop with our project team, and they've got a nice long list of risks that we're going through and refining, and we'll bring them up to our project board for acceptance of that. Just also to note on Jenny's behalf is that the Holidays Act remediation project is currently on hold pending the implementation of the new HRS payroll system, and we intend to deliver progress updates to this committee quarterly. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, and Lyndon, is there anything you would like to add to Megan's comments there?
No,
and Jo, I see you. I'll come back to you.
Sorry, no, I'm all good, thank you.
Thank you. Jo, please go ahead.
Thank you. Chair and members of the committee will know that this is something I am very keen to progress. It's actually a significant part of sorting out our financial capability in terms of how we budget for positions, how we deal with position management currently. And I know it's quite hard for people to believe, but we in effect manage things through spreadsheets and different things, and it's just too risky. It's not just about the Holidays Act compliance. Just to say to members of the committee that in terms of the budgetary constraints, we will be clear. I've given the team a direction. We will need to manage within the budget. It does mean we will be going with the best we can get for the money available, rather than best in class. But what matters is that it's good enough. And I think that's appropriate in the current financial situation. I'm clear that enabling people to serve themselves also through this process will significantly give us a better handle on things like leave, sick leave, value for money, but also enhance the employee experience. So just to assure members of the committee that this is very high on my list.
Thank you, Jo. Appreciate that update, and yes, certainly it is a very complex area, but certainly relying on spreadsheets and other things does present a huge risk for many, many reasons, but also, as you've correctly touched on, the employee experience also needs to be considered as well. Appreciate that update and also the report. Megan, committee members, do you have any questions, please?
Councillor Edwards.
Councillor Edwards, go ahead, please.
I have a sneaking suspicion I asked this many, many months ago at Major Projects Board, but for the life of me, I can't remember the answer. And just hearing Jo and Megan talk, maybe I already have my answer, that this is a very complex area. But I see there's a sentence in the report that says, discuss with other councils their approach to HRIS payroll. Are those discussions, is there any potential to have at least a joint payroll system with other councils, because it must have very similar requirements and staff, and get some economies of scale?
Yes, at the moment, we have all options on the table, so we're not ruling out anything just yet. We have talked to other councils about potentially a shared services agreement. There are some complexities and potentially some privacy irregularities around that, that we would need to be very careful with if we were, for instance, having a joint payroll. But as we go through our requirements, it's definitely something that we will keep in mind. And we are learning from other councils in terms of their experiences with putting in, as there's at least 5 other councils putting in payroll and HR systems at the moment.
Thank you, Megan. Joe, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Just Councillor Edwards, thanks for the question. We did discuss it a while ago, and I think one of the other things is the first thing we have to do is get our house in order in terms of having a system that works and is Holidays Act compliant. As to however payroll is delivered in the future is then something that is very much, there are a number of options, but we have to get these building blocks right first.
Sorry, thank you, Megan. And Joe, just to add, Councillor Edwards, from experience of having implemented a shared services payroll regime, one of the biggest challenges I found was the quality of the individual data as well. So it just goes to Joe's point, as well as we need to get our own house in order as well. So I think the approach, my perspective, that I think the approach of looking at what's available and what the options are is certainly the way to do that. But also alongside that is actually make sure that your own data, all of your systems and your information that needs to go into that is as good as it can be. And then obviously there's the third complication, as both Joe and Megan have already touched on, is the Holidays Act components itself, is just making sure how those are, if you're in a shared services environment, they have to be absolutely consistently and accurately applied. So just a couple of additional thoughts there, but thank you it's a very good question. Any further questions, members of the committee? I'm taking that as no. So I will now move the recommendations, and they are that the Subcommittee 1 notes a new HRIS and payroll system to be implemented as part of the Go Digital program was initially due to go live in mid-2022. 2 notes that on 27 February 2024, the previous provider and Hutt City Council signed a settlement agreement to terminate the contract. 3 notes in May 2024, the HRIS payroll project was restarted following approval by the Go Digital Program Board to progress the initiation phase of the project. 4 notes on 22 July 2024, a specialist HRIS and payroll project manager started in the Go Digital team at Hutt City Council to manage the project. And lastly, notes the Holidays Act remediation project is on hold pending the delivery of a Holidays Act compliant payroll system. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Members of the committee, is there any further discussion you would like to have on this project update before I put the motion, please? Take that as no. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. Against, say no. Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
Aye.
Thank you, councillors. See the hands there, declare the motion carried. So thank you very much, Megan, and also Lyndon. Yeah, that takes us to page 129 of our agenda pack, item number 12, which is the sensitive expenditure disclosures, the regular report to this committee. And I would like to invite Darren to speak to the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to present this report. This is for the last quarter of the 23-24 financial year ending 30th of June. I have nothing more to add other than what's listed in the Appendix 1.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that. And just for committee members' awareness, I always have a very, very close look at this report before when we're looking at the draft agenda pack. It's very, I can assure you, closely scrutinised. So I have nothing further to add either. So I will just open for any questions that you may have, committee members, please.
Councillor Stellinger here.
Go ahead, please, Councillor Stellinger.
Just to point out, I'm not sure on the status of this, whether it's a conflict or not, but Councillor Morgan alerted my attention to that consideration. I do have an item of expenditure on the list as well.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Stellinger. As I said, in response to Councillor Morgan's comment at the start of the meeting, certainly my approach to this that I suggest will put forward for those that wish to adopt it is that if in doubt, disclose. It's always better to have the disclosure there. It may be nothing, but you have disclosed, you are absolutely transparent, and that keeps you safe as well as the organisation safe. So thank you for that. Any further questions, members?
Madam Chair, just in relation to that, acknowledging both Councillor Morgan and Councillor Salinger, they aren't conflicts, and that is something we have previously addressed. But as you say, fine for people to make that. But just rest assured, they aren't conflicts, members.
Excellent. Thank you, Jo. So no further questions. I will now move the recommendations, and they are that the subcommittee 1 receives and notes the information, and 2 notes the sensitive expenditure disclosure information attached as Appendix 1 to the report. Summary of sensitive expenditure 1 April 2024 to 30 June 2024. May I have a second, please?
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. Is there any further discussion required on this report, members? I'll take that as no. Thank you, and put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. All those against, please say no. I'm seeing hands there, so I will declare the motion carried. Thank you, Darren. That takes us, members, we have information items, which is on page 136, which is our regular update to this committee by Andrew Quinn on the Whakatupu Nainai report. So Andrew, I'll welcome you to the meeting and invite you to speak to your report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Andrew Quinn ahau. Can I just apologise for not being here for the last session, an oversight on my part, and something that will not be repeated. So apologies to members and elected officials. Here is the July update for Whakatupu Nainai, which is the regrowth and the urban regeneration of the Nainai Town Centre. The 3 component parts are the pool and fitness centre, which is very much the catalyst for that urban regeneration and development. The conversion of the former Nainai post office into a community centre, and the third component, as prioritised by the community advisory group, is the redevelopment of the northeast corner of Walter Mildenhall Park. So my comments really relate to the progress of each one of those components. Firstly, pool and fitness centre, we're on the final stages. This is now my 4th year with council. The team have been through pretty much everything that they've had to deal with, post-COVID, supply chain issues, the weather, which still continues to this day. Strangely enough, we do get more than one season in one day. And they're just working through the final stages of the program, and in order to be able to be confident about the date we're going to open to public, which is on the lips of everybody right now, we want to make sure that the program through to completion is A, robust, and B, stable. So we're just working through that, and we will be able to release our date for completion of the project works and the opening date quite soon. In terms of conversion of the Nainai post office, finished, opened, taking bookings, increasing as we go forward. Currently, our operator, their Team Nainai Trust, they're building up their existing relationship with bookings, and yeah, things are looking really good there. So pleased that that's now passed over into operations and maintenance, and effectively business as usual. Effectively as an extended arm of council, so run by an operator, and really successful in terms of delivery, both to budget and in line with our expectations. And then the final part, Walter Mildenhall Park, we're now at the back end of design. We've already received registrations of interest from main contractors to be involved in the build phase, which is encouraging. We've received resource consent, so it's a big tick. And the next stage for us will be finishing design, shortlisting main contractors, sending them tender documentation, and then looking to make a move to start probably in the new year now. So if I can take the rest of the paper as read and answer any questions you may have.
That's excellent. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for the great work and your very gracious apology for the last meeting. I'm sure that we will appreciate that, but look, no issue with that either. Great work, I think, is more important to us. So thank you for that. I will just open to any and ask the committee members if they have any questions, please. But obviously progress is good, as you say, where the challenges are still there, and they always will be. But just thank you for that too. And any questions, members?
Councillor Briggs had us the question.
Go ahead, please, Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Andrew, for the update. On attachment 2, 1 is around the risk register of failure to complete the project to meet the requirements and expectations of the local community. So obviously, as we're nearer and closer to an opening date being announced, what's the communications plan looking like around ensuring expectations are kind of set accordingly, but also not just the facility itself, but around how busy it's going to potentially be as well in the opening few weeks, and a whole lot of people wanting to get in to use the pool, and how we're managing that to kind of set expectation correctly as well, so people aren't feeling let down because they can't access the facility, or they're not being able to find a park or find transport to get to the facility when they need to.
And that's very much in our mind when we move forward to what we're calling a hard opening. So hard opening would be day one. Leading up to that, we've got a series of test days and community days, which not only build expectation and increases the level of excitement, but enables us to move towards a hard opening with confidence, knowing that we can deal with crowds, knowing that we're not going to be inundated with huge, and the anticipation we know is there. We know people are keen to take their first swim and to take their first dive down the Zoom tubes. So I guess the answer to the question is we're preparing a comms and marketing plan that builds excitement and leads us through to the countdown to hard opening, and that enables us to work with the community so that they can come in and take part in effectively the commissioning of the pool and get used to how the pool's going to operate, because this is a new pool for us, but it's not necessarily a new pool for the rest of council. We have pools throughout the rest of the Hutt Valley, and we know how to manage those, and the staff will be very cognizant of wanting to make sure that we have no incident on day one. So we'll be doing that with a comms and marketing plan that we'll be able to release at the same time as the date for opening.
Thank you. And just following up as well, just around the business community in the precinct, and is there an engagement plan as well to kind of not only notify them of the pool opening, but also what their offering could look like for them as well, and then potentially changing hours to meet the demand of pool users as well? Is there any intention to do that to make sure that they're kind of prepared to be able to meet the need of clientele?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, working with all of the businesses and around Hillary Court, obviously we build up expectation with regard to the community centre, and this is, one more step along the way to achieve that regeneration. They're very much centre of mind for us, particularly those businesses that rely on fast food turnover on the north side of Everest Ave, and obviously we're going to have a whole bunch of people now turning up for a swim, and that's going to compete for parking spaces. So we're looking at how time limitation and parking restrictions can be applied in a positive sense that not only provides pool users with access to the pool, but also makes sure that those businesses don't suffer when potentially 500,000 people come back into the district.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Briggs, for the questions, and also Andrew for your responses to those. Are there any further questions, members?
Councillor Stallinger.
Go ahead, please, Councillor Stallinger.
Yes, first of all, I just wanted to say how impressed I was having a recent tour, and so congratulations on the progress on the site and how well the pool facility is looking. This is a bit of a bean counter question, I suppose. I'm saying that as a bean counter, and referring to the quantitative risk assessment, which is on our page 141. And I know we've seen these figures before, but I just wanted to make sure before it's all closed off, I've got it clear in my mind here. And it concerns the OPEX budget transfer, 1.8 million thereabouts. Understand the reason for that and how that works and so on, but with the figures above, I perhaps would have expected that may include the demolition works and also the direct costs relating to contamination maybe, but it seems to be a smaller number than those two. So just want a bit of clarity as to what that number comprises. So the authorised capital budget or capital expenditure budget for this project is 68 million, and currently we are forecasting to come in under budget. Demolition, site preparation, enabling works and other associated charges are set to OPEX because that's how the budget was created in the first place. They are generally non-capitalisable cost, and so that's why they're set to operational expenditure rather than capital. So the numbers in the QRA add to 67 million. That's the current forecast exclusive of risk. And when you add risk onto it, it's 67.664. So that also includes potential claims and future variations that we don't know about. So in terms of are we delivering to budget? Absolutely. We're coming in under the 68. And we've set aside site preparation costs, demolition and associated expenditure to operational budget because that's how the project was set up in the first place.
Correct. Thank you, Andrew. And yes, those costs cannot be capitalised. Joe, I believe you'd like to respond as well.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Funnily enough, we've had a Lagoima request on exactly this issue with exactly those questions, and I just signed that out. Including which things were reported where when. So Councillor Stallinger will make sure we get that through to you. It's fairly simple and fairly comprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to follow
thank
up,
you for the question. Yes, Councillor Stallinger, go ahead.
It's more than comfortable. I understand the explanation, given that was my previous understanding as well. I just thought perhaps the number would be a bit higher, and seeing the figures above it, the demolition works and costs relating to the site contamination and so on. So that was really just my question is what's not included? Why, for example, would the contamination costs not have been excluded and reported to our OPEX? Happy to just have a chat offline.
Andrew, are you able to answer that? Are you able to give a brief response now? Maybe if there's any further, take that offline with Councillor Stallinger.
Probably easier to take it offline and discuss personally.
Okay.
That was helpful.
Thank you. If you're comfortable with that, Councillor Stallinger, Andrew will do that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. It's Jenny here. I just wanted to
Jenny,
add one
go ahead.
aspect onto Andrew's response. Excuse me. There was a CapEx budget of $68 million, and councils also approved as part of the LTP 2021 an OPEX budget of $1.5 million. So I just wanted to be clear about those two separate components of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that clarification. Any further questions, members? No, I'll now move the recommendations, and they are that the subcommittee 1 receives and notes the information, and 2 notes the following progress that has been made on the Whakatupu Nai project in the reporting period June 2024 to August 2024. A, work on the new Nai Pool and Fitness Centre is in the final stages of fit out. Plans are being made for a series of communications and events leading to a grand opening, dates for which will be made public at the end of August 2024. B, the completion of tomorrow's Nai Community Centre was celebrated with a public opening event on 29 June 2024 to a large crowd of residents and visitors. Team Nai Trust are now operating Te Mako. And C, designs for Walter Millenhall Park are nearly complete following extensive community engagement. The project scope has been determined using co-design principles, and confidence is high that this part of the project can be completed on time and on budget. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you. Councillor Briggs beat you to it, Councillor Morgan. So we'll have Councillor Briggs on record. Thank you, Councillor Briggs. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour say aye or raise your hand. Against say no.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm seeing a combination of hands and hearing aye, so I will declare the motion carried. Thank you for your work, Andrew. Appreciate that. That takes us to the second information item, which is a regular report to this committee, as you're all aware, which is page 151 of our agenda, and that is the subcommittee's forward work program from 2024. And as we've mentioned several times, it is in the pack for every meeting of this committee. It simply enables us to keep track of the reports that should be coming to us, and also for your awareness of what to expect in agendas and how officers make sure they prepare reports on a timely and accurate basis. So that is the purpose. Are there any questions that any member of the committee has, please? No? Thank you. I'll then move that the committee receives and notes the forward work programme for 2024 as attached as Appendix 1 to the memorandum. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Stallinger.
Thank you, Councillor Stallinger. Is there any discussion you would like to have, members? There are no questions, but just to give you one last opportunity before I put the motion. I'll then put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye, or raise your hand. Against, say no.
Aye.
Thank you. And see hands there, so I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Item 14 on our agenda, I have not received questions for this meeting, so I will move to item 15, which is the exclusion of the public, and I move the motion that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings, namely the Tibai Takamori Otiwa Kairangi, the River Link update. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye, or raise your hand. Against, say no, please. Aye, I see that. I see hands up. So I will declare the motion carried, and I declare the public section of this meeting closed at 3:00.